welcome to 1000 PS TV. I welcome you today from Lesotho and test here the new KTM Enduro generation. 95% of the bike is new. There is so much to tell. Stay tuned. With the presentation of the 2021 models, one could have thought that the zenith of feasibility had been reached. The models work almost perfectly and have proven themselves thousands of times over. To find further improvements for the 2024 model from this starting point was inconceivable to me. I admit I was wrong. Africa is known as the cradle of mankind. Lesotho, however, can be confidently called the cradle of enduro sports. Since 1963, the legendary Roof of Africa takes place in the kingdom. Due to its above-average altitude, Lesotho is also called the Kingdom in the Sky. For KTM, this is the appropriate place to present the new generation of their competition enduros on the sections of the roof. As mentioned at the beginning, the old EXC generation was actually close to perfect. However, the KTM developers saw it a little differently. 95% of the bike is new, which sounds like classic marketing blah blah, but is really true. The 2024 EXC are totally new in design and geometry, and therefore completely different to ride. Let's start with the general updates that affect all models. One of the many innovations concerns the main frame. The new frames are hydroformed and robotically welded. During development, a lot of emphasis was placed on torsional rigidity. Another new feature is that there are now only 3 different frames instead of the previous 4. What sounds like a classic saving can be explained relatively quickly. Previously, the different motor platforms always required different mounting points. These changed, however, then again the rigidity of the frame. Now all 4-stroke engines have the same mounting points and the same rigidity. The mounting points for the footrests are also new. They are now 6 mm lower and closer to the center of the vehicle. This small change, however, has a big impact. The new foot position forms a small hollow in which you can hide with the feet a little bit. That feels a little bit like a safe zone, in which nothing can happen. I think everyone knows that when you drive a little too close to a tree stump and suddenly the foot is torn from the rests. This should now be a thing of the past. In addition, with the new position you have a better feel of the bike. The rear frame is also completely new. The aluminum frame is now replaced by an aluminum composite frame. At this point I would like to express my initial concerns. The old frame often bent in a crash, but most of the time you could continue riding and straighten the frame in the bearing with a precision tool a la sledgehammer. With a plastic frame is after a violent fall but often then end in the field. However, on closer inspection of the frame, my initial doubts evaporated. The mounting points are all made of aluminum, which is then enclosed by the plastic. Load tests with heavy blows have shown that the aluminum frame remains bent after a blow, while the new then goes back into shape. The new shock, which I'll talk about next, also requires a new swing arm. As with all the other elements, no stone has been left unturned. At first glance it looks similar, but on closer inspection it is completely new. Old reserve rims can still be used, but must be adapted with sleeves. A separate report could be written on the subject of the suspension. I'll try to squeeze it into one paragraph anyway. At the front now works a XCT 48mm fork. Of course, from the house WP this fork is new, but will be known to some from the previous WP aftermarket catalog. The fork has grown in length by a good 2 cm to 940 mm. Of course, this also affects the suspension travel, which is now a whopping 300 mm. Also new is the shock absorber, where the new mounting points are immediately noticeable. On the swing arm side, the same bearings and seals are used as on the frame side, which makes it easier to service. While the fork has been made longer, the XPL or PDS shock has been shortened by 12 mm. Also, the spring travel was shortened by 2 mm. This was necessary due to the new geometry of the frame. However, the shortened travel is not noticeable. In driving operation, the chassis has fully convinced. I have at the beginning always the problem with arm pump. On our 120 km long tour, it went right to the point at the beginning with stony climbs and brisk descents, but arm pump, no sign, nothing to feel. The fork responds very well, absorbs shocks well and always provides good feedback. Really powerful is also the new hydro stop on fork and shock absorber, thereby in the last third of the oil is additionally compressed again. This slows down the immersion. Simply put, this acts like a rubber buffer that prevents sagging. We had a few situations on our tour where the old suspension definitely would have sagged, but the WP parts did an excellent job. I am not going out on a limb when I say the suspension on the EXC 2024 is one of the best I've ever had the pleasure of riding. Equally extensive are the changes to the engines. Both 2T and 4T have been completely revised. The two-stroke engines are now called TBI instead of TPI, with the throttle body injection. The fuel is now injected through two nozzles in the intake port, just like on the 4-strokes. The second major innovation is the electronic exhaust flap control. This allows the developers to customize the bike's characters even better using software. Speaking of customized software, what usually reads quite unspectacular in terms of innovations means a massive amount of work for the developers and the testers. Several thousand hours of work go into a single mapping. Well, how do you describe something that was already very good before and is even better now? Maybe exactly like this. We started our test tour with the two strokes. The first photo stop was scheduled after half an hour of driving. There was also the first opportunity to exchange ideas with the other journalists. The opinion was unanimous. No matter whether 150 or 300 TBI makes the motorcycle, to say it in one word, perfect. The response, the sensitivity, the pull-through are now perfect. Similarly, much has changed in the 4 strokes. The EXCF 250 now has less stroke and a larger bore. This makes the engine even more compact and manageable. Across the entire 4-stroke range, the same 6-speed transmission is now installed. New to the transmission is also something I didn't know I needed. All EXCF models are now equipped with an upshift quickshifter starting in 2nd gear. The gears now jump in much nicer and the blocking gear there is de facto no longer. I would also like to briefly discuss the ergonomics of the new EXC, due to the new footrest position already mentioned at the beginning. The foot position has of course also changed. You now stand much closer to the bike than before, you're more or less integrated into the bike. So you feel the bike better and also have more control over it. I have already written somewhere about the point of geometry, but did not go into it in more detail. During the presentation, the term anti-squat, which is new to me, came up. This means quickly explained that the geometry is designed so that more pressure comes to the front wheel. Through the new geometry, this effect was strengthened. Additionally supporting comes the slightly heavier fork. Where the old EXCs still ride play bikes with a very light front wheel, you have to pull the new already quite on the cable to get the front wheel in the height. This effect helps in extremely steep sections, because the front wheel stays longer on the ground and does not dance around freely in the air. Across all bikes, it can be said that the EXC Vintage 2024 has become much more coherent overall. The chassis works very well in different speed ranges. Even more so, it is now adjustable without tools. The new engines are all a step forward. Whereby with the editors almost unanimously the EXC 250 had the nose in front with the 2 strokes, and the EXCF 350 as well as also the EXCF 500 with the 4 strokes won the internal editorship evaluation. The geometry and handling are probably the most serious difference to the old models. Even if it seems rather unfamiliar at first, you quickly grow into this new riding behavior, and can thus also take advantage of the benefits. On the tracks of the roof. The presentation was held on sections of the roof of Africa. Here it quickly became clear why the roof is rightly counted among the toughest extreme enduro events. Stony climbs, huge rock slabs and a huge selection of difficult to unrideable sections. Also very impressive is the wonderful landscape starting in the Midlands with its small canyons up to the highlands, the waterfalls and the countless river crossings. Very special are also the people there. No matter how far you are in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't take 2 minutes when you pause your bike and there are laughing kids coming from every corner asking if you need help or just want a high five. We were accompanied during the presentation by Live Lesotho. The guys were also organizers of the roof in 2022. In their program they also offer guided tours. Thank you for watching this video. Leave us a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any video.